Hello everyone. In this video we're going to go over the packet on writing a summary. Again, you can click on it here under week 2 under the content tab on Cobra, and you can download the Word document to your computer. Again, like with the active reading video, I will be highlighting as I go through this the important things to remember. So writing a summary. Remember, a summary is a shortened version of something larger. Okay, so let's take, for example, if you went to the movies, saw the newest Avengers movie, and a friend asked you what it was about, you were going to give them a short summary of just the important parts. Okay, so why do we write summaries? We write them to be an active reader, to help check our comprehension of a given reading, to demonstrate our understanding, to remember what we've read, and then to practice effective writing. That's always important. Okay, so those are the reasons why we annotate or write a summary. So how do you write a good summary? Here's the thing. It takes time to write a summary, and it takes a lot of effort to write a summary. And so those are two things to keep in mind. Okay, don't try to rush through your summary very quickly. Okay, and so things that you need to keep in mind: you want to put the author's opinion and points into your summary, but in your own words. Okay, that's very important. And I will post a video up on Cobra in the writing a summary little mini folder, that it's a YouTube video of someone explaining how to put something into your own words, and they use the example of Star Wars and how to do that, and so that will help you kind of think through, okay, how do I put these into my own words? So when you write a summary, your role is to be a reporter. All right, you're not giving your opinions, you're just giving the facts. Okay, and your goal then is to communicate the essential message of the original text accurately and in fewer words. Okay, and then usually a summary is no more than 1/4 of the length of the original. Okay, so with this first article, How to Mark a Book, it was 4 or 5 pages. So yeah, it's going to be a lot shorter than that. So remember, your content needs to be in your own words. There'll be a thesis, a theme, or a proposition, main points, and then how those main points connect. So when you structure your summary, you're going to use 2 to 3 paragraphs. It depends on how long the original text was. For this article, 2 paragraphs is fine. And the first paragraph is always going to be the shortest. Your first paragraph needs to include the citation from the article. So for this, it's the author's name, the title of the source in quotes, the source, which newspaper, magazine it came from, and that will be in italics, and then the date of publication. And then you also need the author's thesis. So this all could be in one sentence, and one sentence could be your paragraph number 1, and we'll look at an example of what that looks like. Then after that, in your second paragraph, that's where you're going to put all the supporting points that author made in their article, as well as transitional phrases to show how the author went from point A to point B, then to point C and D, and so forth. All right, so when we look at that first paragraph, paragraph number 1 with a citation and author's thesis, here is basically kind of like a formula that you can use to help you write it. Okay, so in the article, the deadpan look, and so here article titles are in quotes, and all the important words are capitalized, by Bruce Handy, that's the author's full name. And then here in parentheses, we have the source, so it came from Time magazine. Sources are always in italics, so here it's just Time, and if you need to know how to italicize, you highlight Time and then click on the I here next to B and U. Okay? And then comma, the full date, if you have the full date, and then parentheses, and then the author examines, and then the rest of this will be the thesis. So those 4 parts to the citation that we talked about here, that's what's right here. So the title of your article, the author, the title of the source, and then the date. So the rest of that sentence for the thesis statement, okay, if you write an essay, you have to have a good thesis statement that gives a topic plus your opinion about the topic, okay? So some things to remember, okay? The thesis needs to be in your own words. It needs to be a complete sentence. It needs to be broad, okay? Don't give any specific examples the author used, okay? Don't use a moral or a lesson to the story. But a thesis has to be like an umbrella. It has to fit the scope of the article. So everything that the writer says in the article needs to fit underneath that. And then make sure that it includes your topic and the writer's opinion about that topic. Okay? So let's take a look at the full sentence citation plus thesis. Okay? So here we have the same citation as we just looked at up above. So here's our topic. We're going to talk about Botox, and the writer is saying Botox can leave permanent damage to a person's face. Okay, so we have to put all of that into a sentence, the citation, the 4 parts of the citation, topic plus author's opinion. So here's how they did that. In the article, that deadpan look, article title in quotes, all important words capitalized, by Bruce Handy, author. Then we have the parentheses, time, the source, italicized, the date. The author examines the use of Botox and how it can leave permanent damage in a person's face. Okay, so this is all written in one sentence, and it gives the topic and then plus what the author's saying about that topic. Let's take a look at another example. So here our topic is alcohol use in teens. Now this is important. If your writer is talking about, let's in this case, alcohol use, and it's not in adults or in kids or in older persons, make sure that you're specific about alcohol use in which group. Okay, so alcohol use in teens, and what is the author saying about that? It damages the adolescent brain more than in adults. Okay, so here we have citation plus, excuse me, the author's thesis. So in the article, Getting Stupid, so here's the article title, everything's capitalized in quotes, by Bernice Wethrich. That's the author's full name. And then in parentheses, we have Discover. So the source came from Discover, and it's in italics. And then the date. Here we don't have an actual day. Some things are just printed monthly. The author states that alcohol use by teens can cause more damage to their growing brain than to an adult's brain. And so everything in that article will be talking about that. Okay? So that's an example of basically paragraph number 1. Paragraph number 1 can essentially be this one sentence, okay? Paragraphs typically aren't one sentence, but in the case of this summary, it will be, okay? So make sure you have your citation with all 4 parts and then a good thesis statement. So let's take a look at what that would look like. So for your summary, you're going to use Calibri or Times New Roman font type. You're going to use font size 12. It's always set at 11 in Word, so I'll change that up. And you need to make sure it's double spaced. Alright. Alright, so here you're going to put your name. And then this is our summary, and then you'll put the date. Okay? You don't have to put a title. You can if you want. If you want to put summary in the middle, that's fine. All right, so then we're going to start our first paragraph. Now you want to make sure you indent here each of your paragraphs. That's using the tab key up by the letter Q on your keyboard. So let's take a look at the previous article you had. Alright, so for this article, How to Mark a Book is the title of our article. Okay, we'll put those in quotes and capitalize all the important words. Mortimer J. Adler, comma, PhD, that's our full author name. And then the source is the Saturday Review of Literature. Okay, so that's our source in italics, and then here is our date. Okay, so we have all 4 pieces of that information. And so what you can do is go back here, and if you want to, use this example of how, use it like a formula, plug in your own information if this is how you want to start off this first paragraph. Okay, so in the article, How to Mark a Book, so here, article title, in quotes, important words capitalized, by Mortimer J. Adler, PhD. And then here we're going to put in our source. So we're going to italicize the Saturday Review of Literature. And don't forget to go and unitalicize. Then you'll comma, July 6, 1941, in parentheses. The author states, and then now we have to come up with our thesis statement. Okay, so looking back at this article, what was the overall point that Adler was trying to make? All right, he was talking about marking up your book and why it's so important. So we have to put that into our own words. Okay, so in the article, How to Mark Up a Book by Mortimer J. Adler, PhD, the author states that he believes it is important to take notes on the actual page of a book in order to truly understand what the author is saying. Okay, so the author here said how to mark up a book, and that's easy and simple and to the point, but how would you say that? How would you tell someone that's what you're doing? Okay, and so this is something how I would do that. All right, so there we have it. Our citation, the 4 parts of our citation, and then our thesis statement. All right, we're done with our first paragraph. I'm going to stop this video here, and then I'm going to finish the last part of this, talking about summarizing your points in a second video.